Who is raping who? Feminists would have you believe that there's a rapist behind every rock and every tree, but in reality, the real rapists are women raping young boys and babies, while judges and prosecutors are giving out vagina passes in the courts. What about the emotional and financial rapes that occur in family court when women get child custody 95% of the time and men are jailed for being unable to pay child support that is too high? This has become a global issue. Why do judges and prosecutors get re-elected when they show time after time that they hate men and boys but will prosecute them with zeal? A good example is a Steubenville rape case that got national attention recently. What those boys did was wrong and illegal, but mild in comparison to the crimes of the women mentioned in the thousands of videos that have been posted on YouTube showing the vagina pass for female rapists. But judges and prosecutors hesitate, cheat, lie, and ignore legal statutes and will legislate from the bench to keep from prosecuting women with that same zeal they use to prosecute men and boys. Why do men and mothers keep voting for these sexually biased perverts who clearly hate men and boys? You might find this interesting. Mercy and Salzman's study 1989 found that all wives get murdered 0.3% more than all the husbands get murdered by their wives. The study went on to say that black husbands were the most likely to be killed by their black wives based on murder statistics from 1958 to 1988. Strauss, Gels and Steinmetz's study of 1980 found domestic violence to be about the same between men and women except for pushing and shoving. Those stats were steady for years until feminists started to tilt stats in their favor at the expense of men. A study for the Kentucky Commission on the Status of Women has data on both men and women, but only the data on male perpetration of domestic violence was published. Schulman, 1979. Researchers who have an ideological commitment to the idea that men are almost always the sole perpetrator of violence often conceal evidence that contradicts this belief. Thus, many researchers have published only the data on male perpetrators, deliberately omitting data on female perpetrators and male victims. Dr. Murray Strauss, 2007. Feminism was never about equality. It was always about superiority over men by women using gender bigotry against men. When will society realize that feminism, which is gender bigotry, is no better than the racial bigotry of the Ku Klux Klan? A male feminist recently said, quote, "Men that realize giving equal rights to women isn't such a bad thing," unquote. The reply given was this: every right, the right to vote, affirmative action, abortion, etc. was given to females by a male-controlled Congress, Supreme Court, etc. What you and feminists call the evil patriarchy. You want to talk about fairness and right or wrong? Well, let's talk about that and see where it leads to. Let's talk about equal rights. 12 women executed in the United States versus 1,288 men from 1977 to December 2012. Remember that a recent study by Sonia Starr came out stating that men do not get sweet plea deals offered to them like women offenders do, and men get sentences 7 times higher than women for the exact same crimes. Ah yes, the infamous pussy pass. What about 98% of body bags from war filled with men versus 2% women, and the 2% women were not on the front lines? 2,000 women-only health clinics in Houston versus 1 male-only health clinic in Houston. Primary aggressor, gender profiling and rape shield and VAWA laws against men, but would be illegal and unconstitutional if applied to women. In the UK, women can retire 5 years before men. Every right women have been given to them was given by a male Congress. In 1972, Congress gave both genders the right to vote at the age of 18. In 1970, men were forced by the evil patriarchy to register for the draft or face 5 years imprisonment, be refused a federal loan, which is a student loan, FHA loan, etc., and be barred from federal employment or bidding on a federal contract. Female peers did not have to worry about those hideous discriminations, nor did they have to plan for their life or plan their life around being drafted. They didn't even have to take 20 minutes to fill out the selective service form. For 50 years, women aged 21 to 26 were allowed to vote without being made to register for the draft. But in 1972, Congress lowered the voting age for both genders, but kept the oppressive laws regarding draft registration for males in force, and they are still in force till now. If patriarchy is so evil, why did the institutions of patriarchy, Congress, etc., give power to women and take rights away from the average man, which gives women special privilege and superiority over men, not men over women? Women have the presumption of innocence, not men. Women have the right to due process, not men. Read VAWA, Rape Shield Laws, Title 4, B and D, the Bill Bradley Amendment. Read primary aggressor legal language, as they are all gender bias against men and unconstitutional. It seems that the evil patriarchy has thrown away men's rights in order to buy feminist women and welfare mummy votes. Conclusion: feminism equals gender bigotry against males, not equal rights for women. If the above was A, then reproductive rights would be B. Gloria Steinem, quote, "It's a fundamental human right to decide if you want to have children or not." A feminist caught lying. Men have zero reproductive rights. Women wants child. Women wants abortion. Wants to give it up, etc. Man has zero say in the matter. If she lies about being on the pill, lies about who the father is, lies about rape or domestic violence, it does not matter. When men had slight upper hand, it was called oppression. When feminists have heavy upper hand, it's called equality. Conclusion: feminism equals gender bigotry against men, not equal rights for women. C. Here are some figures for you. In the United Kingdom in 2008, 4,861 men were found to not be the biological father of the children on the birth certificate. Not one woman was prosecuted for paternity fraud. Not one. 30% of all births are not fathered by the biological father of record, according to the AMA DNA and Blood Bank Association. That statistic has been around since 1989. Plenty of time for feminists and white knights and manginas to wake up to the fact that a lot of women do lie, and they lie often and get away with it. Here in Australia, about 8 to 10 years ago, they passed a mandated DNA test at birth at the hospital. When it was reported that 30% of the babies were not fathered by the biological father, a big commotion was raised. Feminists immediately rallied and had the law repealed. In Tennessee, about 18 months ago, they introduced a bill for mandatory DNA testing at birth, and it was defeated by a women's political caucus. In all 50 states, a woman can sue a man for being jilted at the marriage altar, but only in 5 or 6 states can a man sue for paternity fraud. It's not allowed in the other 45 to 44 states. More proof that selective prosecution of crime is about emotions. Feminists trumped up emotions, for sure, and not about where the evidence leads. Basically, the bill demands sexual consent for every aspect of the sexual act. Did you kiss her more than she expected? Did you rub her ass without asking? Did you do anything that she did not okay beforehand? Basically, allowing women to come back later and say, "Hey, I approved of having sex but I didn't approve for, now you fill in the blank here, with whatever suits her needs to get her revenge or control. Feminism is about revenge and control. A link to the bill can be found in the description box. In the description box, look for CASB 965 bill and its language. When I tell men that perverted laws against men in the next 5 years will be worse than what we have seen in the last 25 years, they don't believe me. Conclusion: when a feminist is talking about men being rapists and child abusers, she is talking about you. Feminism equals gender bigotry against men, not equal rights for women. You as a man will not be shown any mercy in rape court, divorce court, family court, etc. Even if you labelled yourself as a male feminist, you will be crushed as any other man would be and is crushed daily by a gynocentric society. D. Perceived discrimination, as if males have privilege. 95% of all women get child custody, and yours will too when she decides to divorce you if you marry and have kids. Remember, she carried the baby for 9 months, and that means that she has to have chattel mortgage rights, not you, for no other reason than women sit down to pee and men don't. In the very near future, I will prove to you via Australian family court affidavits that children are the actual physical property of the mother as opposed to the father. The US Supreme Court ruled in 1989 that the doctrine of small children belong with their mothers was unconstitutional, so the courts just circumvented the ruling by coming up with the, quote, best interests of the child, unquote, doctrine. We also emulate this in Australia. Not long ago, Mexico Supreme Court ruled that women could not have preference in child custody just because she was a woman. Now there is a huge difference between joint custody and shared custody. Most people do not know the difference. But in 2005, the MOW, which is an acronym, fought tooth and nail to defeat shared custody because it took away joint custody in favour of shared custody. This would have been the best thing to happen to fathers in the last 50 years. If a man tells a judge, a custody judge, that he's unemployed or underemployed, the judge will give him 4 years in prison. Debtor's prison was outlawed in the 1830s, way back then, and is unconstitutional, like VAWA and primary aggressor laws, which are based on gender profiling. But if a woman can't support her kids, she gets child support, welfare, free health insurance, WIC, and a grant to pay for childcare and to go to college with all utilities paid, while the man sleeps under a bridge or moves back in with his parents while he files bankruptcy or even kills himself. Yes, it sounds like men get a fair deal. Yep, fair go. Conclusion: feminism equals gender bigotry against men and not equal rights for women. E. Perceived discrimination, the pay gap myth. In porn movies, women get 3 times what men get paid, so can I say that all women get paid 3 times more than men, like feminists do? If you know of a company or corporation paying men 3 cents more per hour, that would be violating the Equal Pay Act of 1963. Therefore, you are saying everyone, even the government, discriminates. Why isn't NOW filing suit? Where is the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, whose only purpose in life is to find discrimination in the workplace with their subpoenas? Please tell us why NOW and the EEOC and the Department of Justice aren't filing huge lawsuits. Why don't feminists name the companies, corporations that are not paying women the same as men? Because that would kill the lie that feminists depend on. Now think about that. If women get 70 cents on the dollar, companies and corporations would be hiring women over men, as it would increase their bottom line profits by far. Conclusion: feminism equals gender bigotry against men, not equal rights for women. In the late 70s and early 80s, every other week you would see story after story in papers or on television of men shot or killed, and women girlfriend claiming abuse or self-defense. prosecuting attorneys refused to file charges for fear that it would keep them from being re-elected. It got so bad that Missouri General Assembly had to pass a law mandating that prosecuting attorneys must file second-degree charges in such cases and let jury decide if justifiable or not. 95% of those type of cases disappeared. Women did and still do get away with murder. A survey for the Kentucky Commission on the Status of Women has data on both men and women, but only the data on male perpetration was published. Schulman, 1979. Researchers who have an ideological commitment to the idea that men are almost always a sole perpetrator of violence often conceal evidence that contradicts this belief. Thus, many researchers have published only the data on male perpetrators, deliberately omitting on female perpetrators and male victims. Dr. Murray Strauss, 2007. Conclusion: feminism equals gender bigotry against men and not equal rights for women. G. Perceived discrimination. Rape awareness. Can your feminist girlfriend tell you how many men will be raped this year? Does she have some statistics? No, she can't, because statistics for rape against males doesn't provide feminist funding for lucrative industries like rape hotlines, domestic abuse shelters, etc. Per a UN study, 300,000 men got raped in US prisons per 1 year versus 250,000 women getting raped in 65 countries per police reports in 1 year. Yet males have privilege. Go figure. Feminism has never ever been about equality. It's always been about superiority. Whether a feminist is 10% or 90% feminist, she is always 100% gender bigot because they won't speak out against unfair, illegal or unconstitutional laws bias against men. Never allow a woman to say, "I'm not a radical feminist, I just want equality." Women would have to take 5 steps backward to reach equality with men because men have been made into second-class citizens by feminism. If feminists came out and said 400 women were raped on the moon last week, the liberal media would report it as a fact, not to be challenged, or that would be misogynistic. Conclusion: feminism equals gender bigotry against men, not equal rights for women. Conclusion: short and fat people get discriminated against all the time. You don't take away the rights of the tall and skinny people and give them to the short and fat people under the name of equality. You don't trade one type of bigotry for another, which is exactly what feminism is about. You don't trade the evil patriarchy for another form of totalitarian oppression. Evil matriarchy known as feminism. Feminism is about superiority, not equality, and the facts and statistics prove that. Feminism panders to the 2% of males that make up the evil patriarchy by delivering huge blocks of women voters on election day and getting government funding for feminist causes. But wait until the feminists ask that 2% of elite men to give up their power and watch the fireworks begin. If the states used the same Title IV money that is offered to them by the feds like a carrot on a stick to go after women who have kids out of wedlock, rape boys, murder men, you would see women rioting in the streets and burning cars. How many men know that Title IV funds are used to buy the feminist and welfare mummy vote? Please leave a comment if you are aware of the Title IV or that those funds used to buy female votes comes out of the Social Security Fund that is predicted to be broke between 2014 and 2020. The US government is using your mother and father's retirement pension funds to pay out welfare entitlements and to buy feminist and welfare mummy votes. Are you okay with that? If mother and father don't get that retirement pension check, guess who they will be coming after for help? You. That's who.